Today was marked by two important press conferences, one in Washington DC, the other here in Islamabad. Today I'm going to talk about both these press conferences, what they mean and how they impact the situation and also us. Let's start with the Washington one. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and General Dan Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, had a press conference from the Pentagon just a little while ago. The secretary did not mince any words, and he threatened the US attacks on Iran's energy infrastructure if its leaders did not agree to a peace deal, less than a week before a temporary ceasefire is set to expire. He urged Iran's leaders to choose wisely. So tonight I'm going to discuss this with a guest, but I want to touch upon another very important issue which doesn't find too much mention in Pakistani media, but today I think it's a day that we should tackle the bull by the horns. I am talking about Israel. So let's just start from the fact that this war is now no longer just about Iran or Israel or even the US. It is now about something much bigger, how the world responds to war itself. And right now, two very different responses are emerging. On one side, you have a country trying to stop the war, building bridges, opening channels, bringing adversaries to the same table. On the other, you have a country expanding the war, ignoring pressure, dismissing criticism, continuing to bomb regardless of the consequences. This contrast could not be clearer tonight, because these two countries are, I'm sure you've guessed it, Pakistan and Israel. Now let's start with Pakistan, because something very deliberate is happening here. This is not passive diplomacy. This is organized, structured, sustained effort. Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif has traveled to Saudi Arabia. He's now in Qatar, going to Turkey. These visits, these are not symbolism. This reflects coordination. At the same time, Pakistan is relaying messages between Washington and Tehran. Field Marshal Asim Munir visited Tehran yesterday. He was there. It was a big news. And of course, there are now credible signals that another round of talks could happen very soon. And not just anywhere, right here in Islamabad. When global powers choose your capital as the place to resolve conflict, you know that you're no longer on the sidelines. You are right at the center. So from the United Nations to Qatar to China, there is a consistent message. And the message is Pakistan is pushing peace. Pakistan is pushing dialogue. And Pakistan is creating space where none existed. And that is why I say that Pakistan is ascending in this moment. Not just because it has a powerful military, but because it is extremely relevant diplomatically. In fact, it is the engine of diplomacy right now. Now look at Israel. Let's look at Israel. Because while Pakistan is building diplomacy, Israel is dismantling it. Israel continues its bombing in Lebanon. It's killing civilians, destroying villages. And most strikingly, Israel has made it clear that the ceasefire does not apply to its campaign. The world is trying to slow this conflict down, and Israel is saying, we will continue anyway. That is not a strategy. That is defiance. And if you want proof, here it is. Countries that Israel has attacked since 2023, Gaza, Iran, Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, Qatar, and of course, in international waters, Malta. So this list, if this does not show you that Israel is a rogue terrorist country, then what other proof do you need? Well, if you do need it, here it is. Israel's ground invasion in South Lebanon, you can see all these places from south to north where Israel has been bombing indiscriminately, as a result of which at least 2,167 civilians have been killed since March of this year. This is where Israel's war crimes are stand. And the face of war crimes, this man, the biggest war criminal in the world right now, acknowledged by everybody except perhaps one country. In Gaza, 70,373 innocent people killed. Palestinians have been killed with thousands and are still said to be under rubble. That's 1 out of every 33 people killed in Gaza. And since the ceasefire, at least 254 people have been killed. So, if you start talking about the war crimes of Israel, there is no end to it. And of course, that explains that now the battlefield also is expanding. Here we are. Slowly, world opinion is recognizing this genocidal regime in Israel. Italy has now suspended its defense agreement with Israel, and it says Italy will not review its defense agreement with Israel. The Prime Minister said the Italian government had decided to suspend the renewal, which happens every 5 years in view of the current situation, without offering specifics. Italy is the third biggest arms exporter to Israel. The US and Germany are the top exporters. So that gives you an idea of how world opinion is slowly changing. But is it changing fast enough? Amnesty International has called on states to halt arms sales to Israel. And of course, the UN experts urge all states to suspend arms transfer to Israel. The pressure is growing, slowly building up, but it is not at a stage where it could start having an impact. Here we are, big news that has come out of the US. Senate Democrats issue historic rebuke of military aid for Israel. There was a vote on Wednesday which showed the biggest ever rejection from Congress of American weapons for the country, reflecting broad public frustration with devastating US-Israeli cooperation. 40 Democratic US senators voted to block a shipment of US-made bulldozers to Israel. 36 US senators voted against bombs for Israel. Not one Democratic senator considering running for president voted tonight in favor of arms sales to Israel. This bill was of course not passed, but it reflects the public sentiment, which is in turn being reflected in the way that politicians are approaching Israel. Unprecedented. You could have never thought that in the US, and that too in the US Parliament, you could see such rebuke of Israel. So clearly things are changing. Things are changing. And this is of course America's view of Israel, which are now sharply divided against by party and age. And you also see that around 6 in 10 Americans have little or no confidence in Netanyahu to do the right thing in world affairs. Again, as I said, public opinion is changing and building pressure, which hopefully at some point will start affecting US policy. As I was just mentioning, 40 senators have voted against sending bulldozers, 36 against bombs. This is actually the largest pushback ever. This does not happen by accident. It happens when patience runs out. 60% of Americans now view Israeli unfavorably. As I just mentioned, confidence in Netanyahu is collapsing. Younger Americans are even more critical. Wars are not sustained by weapons alone, they're sustained by support, and that support is weakening. Now, put this side by side. One country traveling, coordinating, building dialogue, another bombing, escalating, ignoring the world. One is building peace, the other is blocking it. And the world is watching. When the world asks for restraint and you escalate, that is not strength, that is isolation. When the world opens doors and you break them, that is not security, that is recklessness. And when civilians continue to die and you continue anyway, that is not strategy, that is failure. So this is no longer just about war. This is about what kind of world are we heading into? A world of diplomacy or a world of force? Pakistan is rising because it is doing the hardest thing, bringing enemies to the table. Israel is failing and falling because it is doing the easiest thing, continuing the war. And history is clear. Countries that build peace gain legitimacy. Countries that ignore it lose it. So the real question tonight is not who is winning the war. The real question is who is losing the world. And the answer is not difficult to guess.